Bonjour, Wache, Anin. Welcome to Lakehead University's Global Indigenous Speaker Series and Research and Innovation Week. We are happy that you could join us today. Bonjour, Denise Baxter, Indigenous, Makwadodum, Martin Falls, and Donjaba. My name is Denise Baxter. I am the Vice Provost of Indigenous Initiatives at Lakehead University, and I will be your MC for this event this evening. Lakehead remains committed to social justice and social responsibility. Lakehead University will continue to advance the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action and Universities Canada principles on Indigenous education. Lakehead University respectfully acknowledges its campuses are located on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. Lakehead Thunder Bay is located on the traditional lands of the Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robinson-Spear Treaty of 1850. Lakehead Aurelia is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. Lakehead University acknowledges the history that many nations hold in this area around our campuses and is committed to a relationship with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and collaboration in the spirit of reconciliation. Before we begin this evening, I would like to do a quick run through on some housekeeping items. Please note that this is an audio-video recording of the Global Indigenous Speaker Series. Participants are reminded that this online event is being recorded. We are doing this to preserve a record of the event in the university archives and to publicize and promote Lakehead University. By attending, you are agreeing to be included in the recording and its public dissemination in any media now known or later developed anywhere in the world in perpetuity. We will have a question and answer period at the conclusion of Dr. Ford's lecture, which I will moderate. So if you would please put any questions that you may have, you can put them in throughout her lecture, and I will moderate through those in the chat pod at the conclusion of her talk. It is now my pleasure to introduce Elder Beatrice Twans-Hines from Bitagog Anishinaabe, who will share an opening prayer.
Bonjour. Bonjour. I already have the smudge lit, and I did the smudge blessing around. So I'm gonna say a prayer, and I'm also gonna do an honor song for Dr. Ford. Okay. So bonjour minwa gijemne do mishom sak no masak tanawe maganak wabishko bebegoji manato equain indigenicas kichimigizi quain indigenicas gaye makwato dame iktigum donji. Hello again, Creator, grandfathers, grandmothers, all my relations. My name is White Horse Spirit Woman. I'm also called Big Eagle Woman, and I'm from the Bear Clan, and I'm from Biktigum First Nation near Pick River, and my given name is Beatrice. Thank you, Creator, for all that you have created. Thank you, Grandfather Sun, for shining on us today. Thank you, Grandmother Moon, for shining on us at night. And thank you, Grandmother Mother Earth, for giving us life, for giving us food, for giving us water, and for giving us the animals, and for giving us breath. I offer my tobacco to the east, south, west, and to the north. Help us to stand strong and to have strong hearts. And Chimiguch, Creator, for the beautiful gift of today. Chimiguch to all who have participated to make this speaker series and to connect with others throughout the world. And I know it's 9:30 in Australia. Wow, that's so awesome to be able to connect in this way. And may we all do what we can to keep ourselves safe so that our families are kept safe, and that we will soon be back to normal and to get rid of this pandemic situation that we're in. Miigwech, Creator. So now I'd like to sing an honor song for Dr. Ford. It's called Ogimakwe, Leader Woman. And that leader woman goes ahead and does what she can to help others with what she has been provided with. So, miigwech. Johnny, okay, McQuay and Gio, oh, Bima, Kabawe, she what paid me, Johnny, oh, McQuay and Gio, oh, Bima, Kabawe, she what paid me, Johnny, oh, McQuay, Johnny, oh, McQuay and Gio, oh, Bima. Kabawe, she what day me gani, ogi makwe, and Gio, ogi ma. Kabawe, she what day me gani, ogi makwe, Gani, ogi makwe, and Gio, ogi ma. Kabawe, she what day me gani, ogi makwe, and Gio, ogi ma. Kabawe, she what day me gani, ogi makwe, Gani, ogi makwe, and Gio, ogi ma. Kabawe, she what day me gani, ogi makwe, and Gio, ogi ma. Kabawe, she what day me gani, ogi makwe. Oh, miigwech. Oh, miigwech. And I send my prayers to you that you will continue to do what you need to do to help others. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Elder Beatrice Swan-Hines, for your prayer and your honor song today. It's always a pleasure to see you, and we really appreciate you joining us this evening.
Oh, miigwech, and I'm glad I'm able to stay.
Nice, lovely. It is now my pleasure to introduce our President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. Maura McPherson, who will share welcoming remarks.
Bonjour, good evening. Thank you, Denise, and Chi miigwech, Elder Beatrice, for your beautiful opening song and prayer this evening. I appreciate you opening our gathering in a good way this evening. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone today, this evening, to the fifth and final lecture of Lakehead University's 2020-2021 Global Indigenous Speaker Series, Imagining Possibilities Through Indigenous Knowledge Systems. This lecture is also part of Lakehead University's Research and Innovation Week, and the theme of this year's Research and Innovation Week is Our Changing World. As we continue in so many ways to navigate uncharted waters, we look to research and innovation to help us understand and appreciate this new world. The critical issues of our time, including climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic, have challenged our current state of affairs and require the global community to reconsider the resiliency and sustainability of current philosophies, structures, and systems. Indigenous knowledge systems offer alternative approaches to contemporary issues and support the reimagination of our global future. The purpose of our Global Indigenous Speakers Series is to highlight the theories, research, and practices of international Indigenous scholars and artists, offering us all inspiration, creativity, and paths forward in uncertain times. Today, we are so honored to have with us Dr. Linda Paiyi Ford, a traditional owner, Rakmukmuk Maranunga woman. Dr. Ford's country is Kurinju in the Finnis River and Reynolds River regions, southwest of Darwin in the Northern Territory, Australia. Associate Professor Ford is a Principal Research Fellow in the Northern Institute in the College of Indigenous Futures, Arts and Society, located in Darwin, in the Northern Territory. She applies her Mirrwana and Wurrkama methodology to her Indigenous research practice and theory across multiple disciplinary fields. Dr. Ford balances her academic research career, teaching and learning in higher education, family, caring for country and culture. Today's lecture, Mirrwana and Wurrkama Theory, an Indigenous research methodology, describes Dr. Ford's life work in social science, humanities, and the educational discipline field. Today's lecture will highlight key areas that include Australian Aboriginal engagement, Indigenous research background, and an Aboriginal methodology, Mirrwana and Wurrkama theory. Please join me in welcoming our Global Indigenous Speaker Series lecturer tonight, Dr. Linda Payee Ford. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Vice Chancellor Maura McPherson. Thank you, Denise, Vice Provost, and Elder Beatrice. It's my honour to be invited to Lakehead University to do this presentation tonight, and I would like to reciprocate Elder Beatrice's song by just playing a simple Wunga ceremony for you, and it starts like this. And this is what we usually do for welcoming new beginnings, and usually we do this when we're for babies, and it goes like this. And that's the beginning of new things that I hope that will occur between your First Nations people and our First Nations people here in Australia and here at CDU, Charles Darwin University. Yes, so I would like to share my slide with you. If I can do that, I'll share my screen now. Denise, is that okay?
That would be wonderful. Yes, thank you.
Technical issues. Screen 3. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Is that my notes on there, or is that?
All we see is your main slide.
Okay, thank you. Very good. So the Indigenous Global Online Virtual Speakers Series is an ongoing program for Research and Innovation Week at Lakehead University. And all universities have a similar program. And usually here on our country, where Charles Darwin University is located, the Larrakia people are the elders. And I would just like to thank them in my grandmother's language, which is Marathia. Yo, pende pende, gone gone, Nirenkan Larrakia Wadigo. So it's acknowledging the ancestors and the Larrakia that are here now, that are present, and the future leaders. My topic today is Mirrwana and Wurrkama theory and Indigenous research methodology. As you heard, I'm Payee Linda Ford, a principal research fellow here at Charles Darwin University. I'd like to acknowledge all the First Nations people across the globe that are watching tonight, Lakehead University and the spiritual ancestors of the land, water, sea and cosmos. And Charles Darwin University respectfully acknowledges its campuses across are located on multiple traditional lands of Indigenous peoples and those of Lakehead, Thunder Bay, that are located on the traditional lands of the Fort William First Nations, signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. Lakehead, Aurelia, is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. Is that right, Elder Beatrice? The Anishinaabe included the Ojibwe, Ottawa and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as Three Fires Confederacy. Our universities acknowledges the history that many First Nations peoples hold in the areas around campuses across the globe. A special thank you to Lakehead again, on whose land Darwin, where I live and work, and Charles Darwin University. Because my Chickmee Aboriginal family had confidence and faith in my work in higher education, research and teaching, I gained strength from knowing this and imagined the possibilities through my Indigenous knowledge systems. This is the story. This is my story. So it's a lifelong story. So the instructions from Allah, who is my mother back in the photo, was to keep our language and culture alive. She passed away in 2007, and her instructions to me were very stern and very firm in the way that she articulated exactly what she wanted. And I just thought, wow, that's a big responsibility. And how am I going to do this? Living in contemporary society, because we don't live in a traditional setting anymore. So I thought, well, I'm in research, how can I make the university work for me? And one of the things about that is that my mother, my Allah, she supported my master's degree and my PhD degree. She supervised me on those. And she was instrumental in the way that she got me to think as a Maranunga woman and as an academic, a researcher. And she said, don't forget who you are. You're Makmak first. You're Makmak Maranunga. So Makmak is our name for a white-breasted sea eagle. So Elder Beatrice, you and I have connections through our eagle totems. And anyone else that has an eagle totem that's listening tonight, we have connections because that is how we construct ourselves and our relationships and our connections to each other. So wherever we go in the world, we can always make connections. So I thought about the things that my mother wanted. She wanted the language to stay strong and our culture to stay strong. Hence my face mask, which represents our totem, which is the white-breasted sea eagle. And it belongs to the Wunga and Wali ceremony group. Wunga is our main ceremony group, and that's what we call our men that have been initiated. And for Wali is our women's ceremony. So in the work that I started thinking about was to find all the Maranunga recordings that were done in the past, all the land claim recordings from Aboriginal Land Rights Act and the land claims that we did for the Finniss River land claim. And I found the linguists that work with family members over the years. And the most important linguist that worked with our family and did a lot of documentation was Dr. Darryl Tryon. Oops. Yes, Dr. Darryl Tryon, sorry. And he recorded a lot of the speakers in 1967. And the work is currently located in the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies archival collection, which is one of the largest Indigenous collections in the world that's been digitised. So Maranunga is a threatened Aboriginal language from the Daly Family Languages region, southwest of Darwin in the Northern Territory. The Maranunga language is one of many non-Pamanganyan in the Daly family languages. As a Makmak Maranunga person from Kurinja on Finniss River, Rennell Rivers and Litchfield National Park region, I set about a project plan for a Maranunga language and cultural team. We agreed to spell our language name Maranunga because there's all sorts of linguistic spellings of Maranunga. There's Maranangu and Maranangu. Yes. So we decided to stick with Maranunga spelt there, Marrangu. So we say that Rak Mak Mak Maranunga are us, the Rak Pulchak Maranunga are south of us on the Daly River system. So we say that here's a map of Australia, and we're right up here in the north in the tropical savannas. And over here is the Waramiri clan that we were adopted into. And down here in the south is our Australian capital city, which is a 5-hour flight away. So when we talk about our country, we say, Wurrkama, country I belong. We don't say the country belongs to us. We say we belong to that country. And that's what this is. This is a signature to say that is the area that I am from. That's the region. So I've got a short, this is our coastal floodplain, and it's fresh water. Oops. How do I play that? So you can see here, we have one predator that lives here. It's a saltwater crocodile. It can grow up to 5 meters long and weigh quite a few tons. So this place here is our favorite hunting place and gathering place for lilies, for lily roots, for fish, for turtles, long-necked turtles and short-necked turtles. And we love going there. It's a beautiful place. And when you go back to country, it helps you build back your spirit and your connection to country. And just looking at this, it makes me feel homesick for that country. And we've been told the stories for this country and how the land was created and formed by our ancestors. And this is all connected to our rainbow serpent that we call Pule Pule. But this is one of the channels. And when you see those big crocodiles come down here, that some of them are so big, you can see their back as they're going back out into the big billabongs. And there's some ducks. We love getting ducks and magpie geese from that country. And we love eating the fat off the country. And when there's no fat, we say, Wayawa. There's no fat. But we love eating fat. So this is the main dreaming track of the rainbow serpent. And we're fishing here for barramundi, which is our favourite fish, and black brim, long neck turtle, short neck turtle. Sometimes we catch mud cods there, angaduk, but we usually say we go fishing there for the achende, which is the little fingerlings, or the amari, which is the male barramundi. And when it's a big barramundi, that's when it turns into a malwood, which is a metre plus. And that's me fishing there, and I've just caught a fish. And now I'm going to skip this, if I can, back to the end. So that's looking back towards the Billabong fishing spot. That's what we call the waterways once it's blocked. So in the wet season, this is a dry season. In the wet season, when we call it Wurrkama season, so we have 2 seasons here, wet and dry, according to white people. But we call this season Malwutu, Wulmatu, dry season, and wet season is Wurrkama. And the painting behind me that you can see is the fire season. And we light the fires every year. And that's what my mother said to me about, being present at the university. Somebody has to be here to light the fire and ignite the knowledge and recreate and make fresh new space for new people to come in, all our students, all our visitors. That is what fire means for us. And the pule pule, the rainbow serpent, was the torchbearer. So I'm not going to say any more about that story, but because that's another lecture in itself. And most of these slides are lectures in themselves, by the way. So this is the ceremony and people and languages that I'm connected with. The Wunga Ceremony, and these are all my family. We have a very dense language cluster in our region of non-Pamanganyan languages. So I've already said to you, Maranungu, Marathiel, they're my grandfather and grandmother's languages that I speak. Then we have Marachavan, Maraamo, and Maranga, and Murunpata, Bachamal, Kiyuk, Wajigan, Amiangal, Mandiangal, and many other languages that are associated with what we call the Marawarga language and these ceremonies, Wanga, Lirga, Chanba. So these are important places for myself. So Darwin is over here. And if you come down the highway, a 10-hour drive in the dry season to Wadai, it's a long way. So imagine all the ceremonies that took place before white settlement in the country, all the walking distances. It would have taken quite a few days for people to traverse this country. But very important places for me is Kalngarin, that's where my mother is resting now. Pandael, Nunjur, which is our women's place. Manling, which is one of our burial places as well. And Bachelor. Bachelor is where I was born. And there was lots of things going on around there. Wanga, Lirga, Chanba areas. So this area here is what we call for Marawarga. So the significance of all of that is the way that I position myself here at the university as a Maranunga woman and researcher. And here is the Indigenous research is what I've referred to that as. And it's from the teachings from my mother about always putting yourself first as a First Nations person, First Peoples person, as a Makmak Maranungu, because we never conceded our rights to country, to water, sea, land, and the cosmos. So a very strong lesson in that for me, from my mother. So this is my mother dancing Wali ceremony, while the men were in another part of the building doing Wunga. So her name is Ngululkang, Nancy Daye. And she's been gone for 14 years coming up. And I still miss her, but she's still here. Her presence is with me constantly, reminding me about what it is that I need to do to fulfill her instructions. Her cupbook ceremony took place at Manly, as you saw on the previous map. And these are all my family members, and the master of her ceremonies was my brother, who passed away in 2012, Mana Frank Dummel, his wife Rosie Gaydon, Mabel Gaydon, and their children. And there's me and my two daughters, Emily and Chloe, and my husband, Mark. So Mirrwana and Wurrkama methodology was negotiated with my mother, the metaphor that I should use for my PhD. I think I wrote 3 dissertations before I reached this with my mother. It's embedded, and the Mirrwana is the cycad plant, which is an ancient plant, and this is a female plant. So when and it has a male plant that is separate. So when I was deciding on which plant or what metaphor I should use, my mother said to me, well, you need one that's going to pull people together. And I thought, oh, okay. So I thought about it, and I said, what about this plant, Mirrwana? Because we use the nut. We crack the nut open and get the kernel to make the bread at ceremonies. So we say the Mirrwana, the cycad, Palangu is the cycad fruit. The nuts are used to make flatbread lower for ceremony, which we call the mimari, the inside of the nut. And this needs special processing, which is a Wurrkama, to remove the toxins. So it's very, very toxic, this process. And also Wurrkama is to do with the work that needs to be done. And it's not only about processing, but it's all about looking after the country as well, and how to manage the country, and how to burn the country with coal fires if you want a small yield, or hot fires for a large yield. And you normally want to have hot fires when there's big ceremonies on, so that there's more nuts to harvest and prepare for the feast for all the ceremony people. Formalising the structure, Aboriginal engagement has been my whole life. It's a lifelong journey. The Indigenous research background has been the formal education or structures around Western science as they construct it. It's my education in higher ed from 1981 to 2021, sorry. And formalising my Mirrwana and Wurrkama theory in Indigenous education occurred at Charles Darwin University Higher Education Core Business in the Bachelor of Primary Education course back then it was called the Faculty of Science, Information Technology and Education at Northern Territory University in 2001 to 2003. And that's when I had a cohort of Indigenous students and testing my theory with them to see about how Indigenous knowledge should be embedded into core curriculum in the program, in that course. So that was quite a challenge, setting that up. But I completed my PhD in 2005 and submitted that. And my mother's sister, Miriam Rose Bowman, was one of the assessors, unbeknown to me. She went and got the whole of the Daily community to read through my PhD, to review it at a community meeting. And it took months, and my mum kept saying to me, what's happening? What's happening? So I had 3 assessors. I nominated to have an Indigenous examiner. It was either, and I assumed that whoever the Deakin University had selected was going to be Miriam Rose, because she was from my country. Her mother and my mother's mother were sisters. And she had been through the Deakin Bachelor Teacher Education program and was a school principal at Nayu Nambu at the Catholic mission school there. So it was either her or Dr. Ramata Marika, who I also called Mum. She was from East Arnhem Land, and she was Wurrkama, and I thought, and she was also an educator. So I thought one of those 2 would be the assessors, but I didn't realise how long it would take to get through the review, calling on all the Indigenous community members to do that. I think that was a first in Australia. Embedding Indigenous knowledge into higher ed accredited core curriculum was a challenge. There's nothing like pushing the envelope and testing the boundaries. And that's certainly what my mother got me to do. Wurrkama stages for Wedigan in Pupua, burning the grass and making sure that you're going to be able to harvest the palangur, the fruit, to be able to sit in a place by a creek with a little billabong on the side, or wudutadi, crack open the seeds, and this would take days, like up to 3 weeks. Crush and rinse the fruit over and over and over until most of the milky colour has been bleached out of the fruit. Final rinse in flowing water, grind up fine and make lower, flat bread. So we're one of the oldest bakers in the world. You know, people always say, oh, this country's got the oldest record of baking bread. Well, we go back 60,000 plus years of baking bread using this ancient plant called lower. So we bake it in the coals, and then we share it out on mulungi leaves to senior ceremonial people. If you get any of this wrong, it can be fatal. It will kill you. So the toxins are very poisonous. And obviously our people are scientists, because it took them a while to work that out by observation, trial and error. And they saw animals like emus eating it, and they tried to work out, now how come they're not dying, but some of us are. And they finally honed it down, and we can eat it. Language, activities and resources. This section is about the process of building the first Maranoga dictionary. This includes background, receiving recordings from Paradisic at the University of Sydney, University of Melbourne, IATSIS, Australian National Archives and other collections. like the Jesuit collections. The Mirrwana program, the development of language learning and teaching, holding Matanuka family group language and culture weekends, and the 50 Words project, which is the national project that's funded through University of Melbourne, Rachel Norlinger and Nick Teberger. So the Mirrwana and Wurrkama model, authorization and transferability for me is a seamless process because I had a great instructor, Allah, Wulkang Nancy Daddy. And I'm hoping that her teaching skills and the way that she instructed me are skills that I pass on to my daughters. It's one of the things she said to me, this knowledge that I'm giving to you is from me to you, to your children, in terms of the closed secret business. But other general knowledge, the shared knowledge in the public space, is what I love doing. I love teaching. I love sharing knowledge. So in that space, the transferability of that across disciplines, people that are stuck in their own specialized area often say, how can you work across plant biosecurity and aquaculture and teaching to postgrad students and to teacher education students? And I said, well, our culture is very holistic in the way that we view the world, and we engage and incorporate our knowledge across the different discipline fields. So that's what I did with the Chicken language workshops and the app development and the Maranunga Mirrwana dictionary. And the proof's in the pudding with Emily, my daughter, who developed the Shorebird app, the Shorebird Instagram, sorry. And there's a link there for you, but we won't go there now because we'll run out of time. So there's a little bit about that later. The Paradisic Collection is amazing. If you have an opportunity, go and visit it. It's at the University of Sydney, and they have all these amazing projects across the globe, working with Indigenous people, especially endangered languages, to record, and you can tell that by all the dots here. And there's 1,100 languages and the collections. And that's where our collection is sitting. So that was through the New Ways for Old Ceremonies project. The importance of recording and archives is Emeritus Professor Linda Barwick, who's retired, Jodie Kell, who's a technical officer, who's doing her PhD, and myself, and Emily's taking the photo when she was 16 and working with me on the ARC project. So we were able to create our own collection for Makmak Maranungu, and Maranungu people can go and access all the records there, and the general public can access the general knowledge information that's housed there, but also at IATSIS, and it's also on Google. And amazingly, the University of Melbourne, Rachel Norlinger and Dr. Ian Green both helped in collating a lot of our language, Maranunga language and Marathia language, to upload into the Paradisic collection as well. And here you can see the language map that First Languages Australia recently launched, Gumbai, an interactive map. The link for this is in my references, and it's Australia's first people's languages with accompanying videos and teachers' notes. The links are in my references, yeah. So that's pretty amazing. I'd love to see all that yellow filled in. Kurunja Wuwangane X marks the spot. There we are up here. And these are all the languages that were spoken on the land, presumably, before white settlement. There are over 250 languages, apparently. I would imagine that there were more, but that's what the linguists have come up with. So the Mirrwana program is a language database used for the Murrununga dictionary. And Emily, who's the IT nerd in our family, has uploaded 700 words so far. And she's been recording me saying the words to upload the sound file as well, which takes a lot longer. And we were able to get a First Languages Australia grant to kickstart that program. And First Languages Australia shared their Mirrwana program with us, license, so that we could access that information. And this will eventually be archived also in the IATSIS collection. So this is the @Shurbur Instagram that Emily created, and she has done an amazing job. And her Makali or Mangali, Nana, grandmother, would be amazed and very proud, I'm sure. So she teaches the languages using digital forms of teaching, unlike an oral tradition. But having the recordings there helps her to teach our language and to pass on that knowledge. So here is a documentary that my oldest daughter did with me for the Aboriginal Cosmology and what this means for women and gender policy. I'm just going to, there's a link to the video. It might take a few seconds. And I might just show you the first little, first half a minute of the video. Can you see that, Denise?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So this is Chloe. I'll have her forward.
Cosmology for me means two different worldviews. It means as a contemporary Australian, I work and I attend university, but as a Wurrkama woman, I go out into my country and I go hunting and I speak my languages and I learn from my elders. Cosmology has two different definitions. It is not just the understanding of the origins and evolution of the universe. For me, it relates to our lived experience and is part of our spiritual existence that connects us to our country. And it's about navigating two worlds and how they both come together and how we bridge the gaps and the differences. As a woman, our cosmology is different to that of the men. We have different songs and dances, and our cosmology connects us to a geographical place. Each clan has its own geographical place, but our cosmological story for Indigenous women is similar. The story of the Seven Sisters is about a man who pursues women, and to escape, they launch themselves into the sky, traveling in the form of a star. This story is a little different in my clan, but it is significant because it teaches us our law, our roles and responsibilities.
How do I exit that? Exit full screen. And go back to, just trying to work this out. Aha. So that's Chloe. If you want to watch the full video, she goes on to explain about her role in research. And she completed her degree at the University of Melbourne, and she compares the graduation ceremony down in Victoria in Melbourne to the way that she was received her testimony in the community at Gower on Alco Island by her grandmother, Kathy Goodthejaka, and the family there that danced her up to receive her testimony. So that it was an example, and it was the first example to the children at Gower Christian School about how to integrate Western knowledge into their system of Yolngu or Wurrkama knowledge systems. Oops, I've gone too far. So Ford's 2005 Mirrwana and Wurrkama theory metaphor represented visually up in this painting, which sits in front of me on my desk. And this is the cycad plants, the Mirrwana. This is the knowledge that's created in that space over the last 200 years, 250 years, or 200 years, just close to 200 years for us here in the Northern Territory. We were colonised, the first Western visitors, explorers came to Tiwi Islands in 1824. So this depicts the Indigenous knowledge and the Western knowledge and the way that that comes together. And they also reflect the hands, the phalanges on your hand when you shake hands. So represents, this is Mirrwana and Wurrkama theory metaphor represented visually and in reality. This is a both ways knowledge process. So you've seen in the videos the way that the ceremonies happen on country. I've talked to you about Chloe getting her Bachelor of Arts at the University of Melbourne. I was awarded my PhD in education or philosophy at Deakin University. With Emily's here graduating with her certificate 4 in business, and with me and all the community members that did the course with us. But also we stay connected and grounded to family and to our ceremonies. And here you can see us with family. We continue to look after country, looking after our mammals that are becoming extinct due to climate change and the impact of that. And because we're on the floodplains, the salt water's rising again. And that's not new to us. 10,000 years ago, the sea was way back over near Timor. So for us, that new change isn't new. It's just reoccurring. It's just taken 10,000 years. And we have stories of whales that are now sitting up on dry land at the moment on our country, just near that billabong that I showed you before where we were fishing. And that's what connects us back to Wurrkama people, to Gutta and her family. So here you can still see us going hunting for barramundi. We look after the country by measuring the grass and what's happening out there. Here we share in women's stories and knowledge and ceremony at Nunjur. And so that continues. So songs for country on CD are the Wunga songs, Lirga and Chanba. And now I'd like to play just the first little bit of music for you about the Puliki buffalo that my Angus sung, Muluk's Wunga. And we call, in our language, buffalo, the water buffalo, a kapalinga. So let's see if we can get this to happen. So that old man there, that's my great uncle. Okay. I might just stop it there because I'm aware that we're running out of time. And so there are other ways to transfer knowledge other than through songs and performance. But there's the leadership and management of maintaining the country's identity. Aboriginal sovereignty of our core business is maintaining our language through teaching and learning on and off country, research on and off country, activities on and off country, making nunga nunga, clapsticks, canby, didgeridoo, dancing, singing, rituals, hunting and gathering, and sharing that knowledge with young people. So Makmak Maranunga Seasons calendar, which is in the post. And I would like to present that to the Vice Chancellor, Moira. So, and Elder Beatrice, I would like to present Ngandi Kathy Guttajaka's seasonal calendar of our, it's very different to what the Vice Chancellor Moira will be receiving. So that's in the post.
Beautiful.
And thank you. And if I was there, I did a painting that visually represents the pandanus. Oops, what's happened? That represents the pandanus mat. And this is to do with our women's business. And the knowledge that's woven into this is just amazing. So I painted this on canvas for Denise for inviting me to your seminar series. And that is a cultural gifting cultural practice. So it's like sharing the lawa at a ceremony. So that's why I've put on my face mask today, because to me this was very special, and the reciprocity in sharing of knowledge across the globe is very special. So how do I go back to my screen? I can't see my screen. Okay. So, oops. So there's your painting that's on its way. It's,
Thank you.
and Chloe started the painting in the center, and I finished it off. So it's very special. And I've got the painting behind me that I did back in 2005, and that was part of my PhD journey. when I had writer's block. Because I was trying to think of ways to explain in my thesis the Indigenous concepts in a Western way. But it was too hard. So I did the paintings to help me get the message across. And that helped me think about how to move across disciplines. Yeah. So the painting's on its way. So the world's oldest living culture always was, always will be, first peoples, languages in a changing world. And we can do whatever it takes because we've been here for 60,000 years plus, and we know it's in our genes. So yeah. And my message to all of you out there is that Indigenous people that have lived on the land, that know the land, understand the land, it's part of who they are, their identity. It's just amazing. So that's all I have to say. Maranunga wakanene. Mama is our word for goodbye. So, and that's the Nadla Wakam Nene, thank you, and just thanking everybody. There's the references that you might want to look at. And I've shared this with Denise so that she could share it with people at your university for educational purposes. And all the people that have supported me throughout the years. The list is huge, but they're a lot of the key people. And thank you to the ceremony acknowledgements, to the organisers today. And I wouldn't have been able to do this without Katrina and Marianne for helping me, and for Lakehead University people, because I've not done this before.
Well, we're so pleased you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
That's it. Back to you, Denise.
Wonderful. Chimiigwech Dr. Ford for sharing such an impactful lecture. And I know we had some quotes that people had put down to you. One person, Jim, said, "I'm loving this tour of your homeland." And then he said he couldn't get over the cool factor of having your own mother as a PhD advisor. Such an appropriate mentor for the type of research that you do. Leanne, fabulous.
Can I just say something there?
Yes.
My argument to the panel was that I spoke to them in Marunungal, and they all looked at me with blank faces. And I said, that's the whole point of Indigenous knowledge being incorporated into core curriculum. I said, I need my mother to be my mentor and my supervisor for my PhDs.
Wonderful.
And it was the first time in Australian university that that happened.
Paving the way.
Groundbreaking.
Yes.
So I was there busy lighting fires. And if my mother hadn't told me to go down there to tell that deacon mob that if they could understand Marununga, well, she'd be happy not to be on the panel. But if they could, didn't know that she should be on the panel. A very simple argument, isn't it?
Yes.
It's all about knowledge and creating new knowledge. And that's what research is about. Creating new knowledge in innovative ways. Mm-hmm. So that's a challenge for all the young Indigenous people out there and old Indigenous people out there, is to make sure that you stand up and make your voice count for yourself and for your people and for your country.
Good advice. There was a question about the calendar image. It looked like there were 4 seasons, and if there were, what are they?
Well, good this calendar season, which I can't read because it's in Wurrkama and I haven't learnt it that well. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, I can't say those words, but one day we'll get Gupta online and she can tell you that. And then she's got on the other calendar that she sent, so that's the fruit and flower. This one's about the seasons and the season changes. And this is different again, so it's to do with some of the, because it's on the coast, it's to do with the salt water. And for mine, this painting that you can see in the background is here. So that's the dry season, this section here, basically. And that's called the Wurrkama. And this painting here that I've also done, and these paintings were done for my PhD, is the wet season, which is Wurrkama. But here we have Mullen Papak is when all the beautiful eucalyptus flowers come out, burst out, the orange eucalyptus flowers and many other flowers. And it starts to get foggy in this time of year. And that's when all our ceremonies usually happen. The Muri Muyada is the start of the wet and the build up. And then we have the Kuna Durbu, which is coming out of the wet when the magpie goose, the spear grass heads falls off and you can go and collect the magpie geese eggs, which is about now.
Okay.
So yeah, so and then we've got the Kulia Uramira, and that's moving into when you can go and dig long yams. And when you dig those up, they're about just, you've got to dig the holes quite deep, and you're not supposed to break the yam, otherwise things will happen to you. And usually it's the women that dig the yams. And we do the ceremonies in that period. So does that help?
It does.
There's a
And
lot of information.
along the calendar, there was a further question about a circular calendar. And in addition to the, looks like a 12-month cycle you've shown us, do you have larger time cycles such as 20 or 50 or 100 years? Or
Oh, yes. Yes, but yeah, yes, we do.
okay.
The story that I said to you about the whale, that's a 10,000-year-old story.
Okay. So depending on that ocean moving and going, it could be 20,000.
That's right.
Okay.
So the other thing is that sometimes, for example, in the desert, when there's been no rain and it's the drought for years and years and years, some of the women down there have songs for harvesting seeds to make flour and make their bread. And some of those seeds don't reoccur for 2 or 3 generations.
Wow.
And so it's lucky that a lot of the really old kunikuni or chilili, old women, are still alive to be able to see that bread, the seed, when there's plenty of rain, the seeds come up and that they can do the ceremony. And that's what's been happening recently in the desert. And that information is from a Emeritus Professor Linda Ford's project that she was telling me about for the Walpuri women in the desert, in the central desert. So that's pretty amazing. And they're very lucky that those old ladies were alive to share that, because Linda and Miff Turpin and Georgia Curran were able to record those songs. So we're very lucky that we have the Australian Research Council grant schemes that we can apply to document a lot of that old knowledge. That's, if it's not documented now, what's going to happen in the future is my concern. And that's why I've been busy documenting. And my mother said to me, I've taught you everything I know, you need to write it all down. And when I asked my two daughters, or when I'm teaching my two daughters things, they say, Mum, that's all in your head, you need to get it out and put it onto paper.
That's a good thing. So just along
So,
that.
so that's just, this is just from one research project, and I
Right.
would love to do more, but there's so, I mean,
So much to do.
so much to do, and there's only one of me.
Well, along that line, Ethan Brandt had sent a comment, and he said, I take it you may not be finished with M&W, Mirrwana and Wurrkama, as education is infinite and there is always work to be done on preserving language and culture. But are there any other projects you are currently passionate about and working on? And are some things you'd like to work on in the future? And then further to that, it's also awesome to see you working alongside your family in these endeavors as well, and passing the passion along to your daughters. Family appears to be a very important portion of your culture.
It is very, family is very important. And one of the things that when I was doing my master's and my PhD, my mother would accompany me to all my conferences, and she would share her knowledge with me. And that was before children. And then when the children came along, she would be busy telling them things when we would go off to conferences all together. And so I would learn a lot just from the way that she engaged with them as well. So those practices are now what I'm practicing with them. And my oldest daughter is expecting. So, and I find myself already going and talking to her in Marathiel and Maranogu through the tummy. And we've done ceremonies to, you know, that Mum had done for me when I was pregnant with Chloe and Emily. So that's what I've learned from my mother. She's passed on all that knowledge, but as Chloe and Emily say, it's all in your head, Mum. And I said, but that's because it's an oral tradition. Right. They said, no, we don't learn like that anymore. And the people in the future aren't going to learn like that anymore. And so that's what the future is for me, to make sure it's documented and put out there. Wonderful. So does that answer his question?
I think parts of it, yes. I do have one final question. What do you believe is the importance of Indigenous knowledge and Western science working together?
Oh, it's critical. With climate change at the moment and what's happening, knowing when to burn the country. You know, we've had horrific fires, we've had floods here, we've had, we're even getting tornadoes now, although we say that we've had many tornadoes here on our country on the floodplains forever. But the big bushfires down south, people are just starting to become much more aware of those. And I suspect that if they go and ask some old people from down that country, they'll be able to tell them a thing or two about what's happening on that country and the history of the country. Because unless you talk to people and open up the communication with people that know these things, a lot of the old people won't say anything because they feel that they're not valued by Western science. And so they tell their young people, and it's up to the younger people to make sure that those silent voices are heard.
Mhm.
So I think that's the other job that I have amongst all the things that I do. Yes. Sometimes I find it hard to balance between Indigenous knowledge and Western knowledge, and to share that, to do the intergenerational transfer of knowledge sometimes gets a bit tricky. But I find that if we go and do activities together, it's much easier and more of a one-on-one with family members, their friends, colleagues. It becomes much easier to engage in a dialogue that's much more engaging, and it's about forming trust. And this is what the Mirrwana principles are about. It's about forming trust, the relationality of how you're positioned, and the words that you speak are words that are not going to be offensive, that they're going to be words that are considered and thought through. And sometimes you might get it wrong. But I think if the other person is genuine in that they want to learn, that you will find ways to make the dialogue much more enriching and reach a consensus through that negotiation process to achieve an outcome that's going to be beneficial, not just for your relationship, but for the wider community and society, and hopefully the globe, because we're all suffering from climate change.
Yes.
And so all our Mirrwat is like all our totems. We say, "Awa Mirrwat put maradayan wakai." So they've given us, the Mirrwat can be anything, but it's given us it's our ancestral connections to country, to water, sea, land, cosmos, and it's very spiritual. And people often, hardcore scientists often say, "Oh, that's all airy fairy." But when you start explaining things about the connectivity to how you are constructed in the world and are accepted by your environment, and that you are one, I suppose, spiritually in one, because we say in Maranungu, you come from the land or from your Mirrwat. So my Mir, my conception totem, is from the land. So mine is the native honeybee. And we don't believe that males impregnate women. We believe that the land impregnates the woman. So it's very it's a different way of thinking about how you are spiritually connected to country. And so it's really important for my grandchild that's still in the womb, we were out on country. We saw some a particular species of water monitor, which we call a Wurrkama. And I said to my daughter, I said, that's your baby's old mir, because usually they don't come up to us at all, but this one kept coming. Every time we went out or she went out with her partner, they would be greeted by that particular animal, the Wurrkama. And I said, so that must be the baby's conception totem. And the same process has happened to us for millennia. And we say that's how you're connected. That's how you were brought into the world. But you're also part of your grandmother's clan Mirrwana totem and your grandfather's Mirrwana clan totem. So everything's integrated and everyone is connected to people and place. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. And I see Elder Beatrice is nodding as well. So
science is there, but it's just a different point of view.
Yes. Well, we are coming to the end of our time together, Dr. Ford, and I would just like to thank you very much on behalf of the entire group here and on Lakehead University. You know, really some of the key pieces that I took away is the connection, the relationality, the similarity, and we have spirit. We have spirit creatures as well, and we have our totems as well that are familial. But thinking about your connection to your family, to water, to sea, to country, to cosmos, the language, the importance of lighting the fire, not only on the land, but as you spoke about it in education, and the important role that you play in, sparking that growth of others that are coming, through now and coming.
That's you lighting the fire, Denise, and Elder Beatrice and Vice Chancellor Moira. Without the support from higher up, both in the university and from community, it's very difficult for people to make that happen in this space, in higher education space.
Well, I would like to welcome President McPherson just to make the formal presentation of our event.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Denise. And on behalf of Lakehead University, it is my absolute pleasure to thank you, Dr. Ford, for joining us this evening for us, for morning for you, and sharing your research, your stories, and your many, many insights. And I also want to thank you for the very thoughtful personal gift that you have honored us with this evening, myself and Elder Beatrice and Denise. We appreciate you taking the time to contribute to our learning and for discussing how Indigenous research and knowledge are influencing paradigm shifts and leading to a new narrative in government and non-government policies. As a small token of our appreciation, I would like to present Dr. Ford with the Certificate of Invited Lecturer, which we have already mailed to you, I believe. And yeah, and I also want to say that we so look forward to deepening our relationship with you, the Northern Institute and the College of Indigenous Futures, Arts and Society, and with Charles Darwin University. And in fact, this relationship has already started with some of the work that we've been doing in partnership with Denise Baxter and one of our colleagues, James Aldridge. So we're really looking forward to continuing to build on this and to be able to share and to learn together. So to you, Dr. Ford, I say miigwech and thank you. And I also want to just take a quick moment to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Lana Ray, to James Aldridge, to Denise Baxter, to Anna Chief and all of the Indigenous Initiatives team, and finally to Elder Beatrice for all of their incredible work to develop and host what has been an outstanding series. So thank you to our audience for joining us tonight. And again, Linda, thank you so much on behalf of Lakehead University.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Something? I just want to say something too. I would just like to say miigwech, and that means thank you in Ojibwe. And I'm looking forward to seeing the gift, receiving the gift. And in the Ojibwe language, we don't have a word for goodbye. We don't even have a word for welcome, but we say bindigane, come on in. And for instead of goodbye, we say minawa gawabamin. I will see you again. So miigwech, and it's good to have that connection. Miigwech
Yes.
for your stories. Miigwech.
Lovely. Lovely.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we usually say, oh, when we're saying hello. And for goodbye, we usually say, Mama Gavade. Yo, Paboy. And Paboy means see you later. And then, yeah, see you later.
And our see you later is a gigawabamin. And it is
Oh.
a pleasure today to just to close our event by thanking everyone for attending, both sides of the oceans and throughout Turtle Island. We thank you all for joining us, listening and learning from Dr. Linda Paye Ford, Associate Professor and Principal Research Fellow for the Northern Institute at Charles Darwin University in Australia. So we wish you well. And to everyone who joined us this evening, miigwech, Elder Beatrice, thank you again for joining us throughout all of our series. And we look forward to our Global Indigenous Speaker Series coming up for the next academic year. And we hope to have more visitors from your beautiful country, Dr. Ford.